Hello everyone, nubkeks here and welcome back to Nub Raids. And in today's video, I want to talk about the 6 worst legendaries in the game. Right, we talked about 6 champions who are being buffed, 6 legendaries getting really nice buffs in yesterday's video, and in particular in that one, we saw that Jingwon, the worst void legendary in the game, is getting a lot of buffs. And it left me with that fun question of going, well, who's the worst one now? Who would I be least happy to see popping out of that shard when I hit gold? So we're going to talk about that on top of, well, my worst void legendary pick and then the worst 5 legendaries in the game. So let's do it. And by the way, for people that were we had some concern, nubkeks, did you get a haircut or whatnot in the previous video? I didn't, but you know, it's just the hair is tied back, yeah. So that's all. It's still there, but you know, I can tie it back whenever. I can leave it down whenever. It can do both. It can do both. The technology has been discovered, guys. Right, let's dive in. Let's talk about the 5 worst non-void legendaries in the game. Now, I'm sure most people are going to be going towards Pixneal. I'm picking Pixneal, but let me tell you, Pixneal doesn't make the list. Not quite. She's edged out, in my opinion, ever so slightly with worst champions. I'm actually going to start off with someone who suffers from the Pixneal problem. She is my pick for the 5th worst legendary in the game, and that's Norma the Returned. What do I mean by the Pixneal problem? What I mean is a champion that has a reasonably decent kit, but maybe just not quite good enough to bother building simply because they have a lot of reading to do. Norma, 4 books on her A1, 6 books on her A2. That's 10 books total. 6 more legendary books in her A3. 16 books. 16 to make Norma work. And do you need these books? Well, her A2, yep, 2 turns of cooldown reduction at the bottom. Her A3, yep, 2 turns of cooldown at the bottom. Yeah, this is the problem with Norma the Return. She looks absolutely cool. I mean, like, you look at this, she absolutely badass character, and in particular she's got 2 really big sickles here which really pop, really stand out, and you know, just sort of define her character. It's very cool. But look, she's designed to be a single target clan boss and dragon specialist. Her A1 books a 60% chance to increase 3 random debuffs on the target by 1 turn. This could potentially be really good with some buffs. This could get really good if it was a 100% chance for 3 random buffs. Or if it was a 60% chance for all debuffs. You know, this would be pretty cool. Her A2 puts decreased attack and then heals allies based off her max HP. Does more healing for each poison on the target. Her A3 puts out 3 poisons and poison sensitivity for 3 turns. It's not a terrible kit. The problem is that she just doesn't really bring enough and needs so many books. So the only place I'd be building her, if she was one of my very first legendaries, she might be worth building and investing books into. Like, I'm talking about the very first few, just to get you into Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, because she can be okay there. I certainly think that, look, if they knocked an extra cooldown off of this, it's the same thing with Pixneal, where I don't think they can reduce the amount of books needed because people have already spent those books. But if they knock this down to a 3-turn cooldown and she could go this, into A1, and then back around again, and the A1 had a better chance, then she'd be pretty solid. But as it is, sorry Norma, looks super badass, but unfortunately, just build a Frozen Banshee, who's a rare, and you're pretty much in a better spot. So yeah, Norma, worse than Pixneal, in my opinion. At least Pixneal does some kind of cool stuff for the Frost Spider, and like, she's kind of unique in what she does, so there's that. Next up then, Queen Eva, 4th worst legendary in the game. Queen Eva, again, actually very cool looking champion, and one of the original champions. She looks badass, got a cool theme. She's the queen of the Dark Elves, or I think actually just the queen of the elves in general, so it's really disappointing that she's so bad. So first of all, look at her stats. She's insanely high base attack, almost 1700, but she doesn't hit anywhere near hard enough to justify it. Got very boring A1 and A2 as well. Heal reduction on her A1, okay. She can block revive on her A2, which is kind of decent, but it doesn't hit that hard. It just doesn't hit that hard. Nowhere near as hard as other champions now that can block revive. Then her A3 is what makes her good, but it's even still pretty random. It's an AoE attack, 20% turn meter depletion, resets all of her skills if it kills a target, an extra 15% of inflicting a critical hit. She has a really bad aura, 19% crit rate in all battles, but basically what you do with Queen Eva, there's only one thing. She does two things in the game well. She's good for speed farming stage 21 faction wars with a team built around her, but she's extremely squishy. So for your typical first time clear, she's not even that good for that. The main thing she's good at is campaign. You use her aura and you use the extra 15% chance to crit on her A3. And yeah, then you can build her with just good damage. She's relatively easy to build, doesn't need to be booked either. And she'll just A3 every wave in campaign. And she's a good campaign farmer. That being said, that's just not very useful. There's so many good campaign farmers in this game. There's so many champions that can do it really fast for you. So the point of building Queen Eva, just for me, it's just not there. It's just not there. Yeah, like you get her and you're better off really just not even bothering. Unless you, for some reason, have a super slow campaign farmer. Yeah, she's just so useless everywhere else in the game. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. Next up then, we're going to the Sacred Order. Actually, for 2 champions in a row. First up, we've got Errol. Yeah, Errol, in my opinion, the third worst. One of the things I really don't like about Errol compared to the first 2 champions we talked about here, visually, I think he's terrible. He's terrible. Like, he's, you know, you look at the Sacred Order, and the Sacred Order, they've got a really cool theme, actually. You've got lots of angels, like lots of these angelic or mythical beings, you know, tied into religion and myth. And then you've got the other side of it is like sort of religious fanatics is sort of the other side. It's religious fanatics and like angels and mythical figures. And then you've got Errol. He's just a knight. He's just a dude. He's a knight that watched a bit too many Power Ranger movies, and you know he's trying to cosplay as that, but it's pretty underwhelming. I mean, look, the cheeky bugger, he even stole Hell Hades' new logo. Like, come on, Errol, what are you doing? Unbelievable. But yeah, so he doesn't fit. He looks like a Bannerlord, and a boring Bannerlord at that. Now, on top of it, what's he do as a champion? Again, really high attack. He hits really hard single target. A1. Single target hit, extra chance to... All of his attacks have an extra chance to crit, 30%. Triple hitter with a chance to ignore defense, so really hard hitting single target. And then he has a steal all buffs from the target move. So he's got 3 moves. They're all just, I hit a single target really hard. This is a plain one. This one steals buffs. This one ignores defense. Very basic, very straightforward. Ally attack in dungeons. The problem with Errol is that it's just not useful anywhere. Like, just hitting someone really hard single target, it's just not very good. He's too squishy for clan boss. He doesn't do enough damage for unkillable teams in clan boss. You've got poisoners are just way better, for example. And then there's other champions that just do more raw damage and bring more to the table. Arena is probably the only place where he really shines, and he only really shines early in mid game, where, okay, you know, bringing in someone Force Affinity that hits really hard is kind of cool. He can blow up one person. The issue is that he just kills one person and that's it. Champions that, you know, single target damage dealers in Arena, in order to be viable, need extra turn mechanics. They need something extra. Like, you look at Rotos, who's the best one. You look at his passive. You look at every single one of his skills. Extra turns in his A1, A3. Stealing HP, max HP in his A2. Like, Rotos has so much going on in his kit. Errol just doesn't have anything near that. So yeah, just look. He hits people really hard single target, and that's just not very useful. Not very legendary. Next up then, second worst legendary in the game, non-void. I'm giving to Halsring. Yeah, I think Halsring has to be in there. Now, I really like Halsring's design. The dude looks cool, and even though his kit is really bad, I kind of like the randomness of it, honestly. He's got a 2-hitter at random that gives him increased attack if it crits. On this one, his A2 is a 3-hitter at random that ignores defense on targets under Hex, ignores more defense if they're from Bannerlord or Knight Revenant, super random. Then he's got a 4-hitter at random that can place Hex, and champions from Bannerlord, Knight Revenant cannot resist this debuff, and he can steal turn meter, steals more if the target's Bannerlord or Knight Revenant, and then he can give himself Perfect Veil as well. If he attacks 2 targets under Hex during the same turn, he gets Perfect Veil, and yeah, he just gets more crit damage under Perfect Veil. So, you know what? Again, I like 2 things about his kit that most people don't like. I actually like the idea that he's just got a bunch of attack at random. You know, I actually like that. I think that's kind of fun. I feel like it's cool to have one legendary that does a whole bunch of stuff at random is pretty badass. Now, unfortunately, it just means that he's not that useful. He's not very, very good. And then I'm a big fan of these faction-based effects. I think they're really cool. And I'm really hoping that all this faction-based stuff they're adding into the game, I'm hoping that they might add more faction-specific stuff in future. Like, how cool would it be if there was like an arena tournament where you had to pick like a side, and you'd have to fight people from the other side. So like you could pick whatever. Okay, I'm going to go in as Talarians and I'm up against the Corrupted in this, in this tournament or something. How cool would that be? That would be super fun. There's a ton of potential with this faction stuff. Unfortunately for Ring, as it is right now, that's just not in the game. And Bannerlord, Knight, Revenant, they're not super relevant factions for Arena. So this isn't that good for anyone in Arena. And it's not really relevant in PvE either. So none of his faction stuff is really very useful for you at all. He's super at random. Like, he can do really good damage, especially single target, where, there's no hits at random. It's a 4-hitter, a 3-hitter, and a 2-hitter. He's pretty good single target. But yeah, just an underwhelming champion. Where does he actually get used? You can use him a bit in Fire Knight, but honestly, there's better options. Like, for example, I'd say Cold Heart is probably just straight up better in Fire Knight. So yeah, Void Rare just kind of beats him there, albeit the best Void Rare in the game. The best rare in the game, but still, underwhelming is Ring. Okay, then the worst legendary, I think it has to go to Tila. The worst non-void, it has to be Tila, doesn't it? I think it really has to be. A1, steal a random buff, and then a 50% chance of stealing another random buff if they've got 2 or more buffs. It's just the idea is cool, but it's just a bit undertuned. It does so little. Then her A2, HP burn on one enemy. A single target attack, HP burn for 2 turns, and then a continuous heal on all allies. Tila, underwhelming. There's epics with way better moves than this. Then Life Worm, her A3, AoE attack, 4 turn cooldown when booked, puts leech and heal reduction for 2 turns. Like, again, like, where is that useful? It's just not useful, is it? It's just not useful. Like, she's completely outperformed Deliana's A1. Is basically as good as this, because heal reduction just doesn't really get used anywhere in the game, unfortunately. So yeah, and that's actually cropped up in a few of the champions on this list. Not very good. Resist in all battles 50. Tila, she's just bland. On top of that, she does no damage. Her damage is really bad. Really, really bad. One of the weakest hitting champs in the game. Yeah, she's just not there. There's just no reason to ever build her. She's not good really anywhere. I mean, she can maybe help you out in Orc Faction Wars, where the leech at least is something, and continuous heal. If you don't have a healer, if you haven't pulled a Vrask, then sure, she's going to be okay for Faction Wars, I guess. But after that, no, she's just horrendous. People actually like her for Magic Keep. There you go. People like her for Magic Keep, I guess because you can steal the buffs. But honestly, would you even bother? You certainly wouldn't book her. Not recommended. Not recommended at all. And then finally, to talk about it, the worst Void Legendary in the game, in my opinion. Certainly, it was definitely Jingwon before, but now he's been buffed. This has definitely changed up. The worst one, I actually have her. And I think the worst one, in my opinion, is Little Miss Annie. She's a really cool looking champion, but she has the Errol problem. The Errol problem crops back up, which is, what does Little Miss Annie do? She just does single target damage, and she does a lot of single target damage. Like, she really hits hard, but what is that useful for? Not much. So her A1, triple hitter with a chance of heal reduction. Heal reduction again cropping up in this list. Just still a debuff that's not utilized in the game. Triple hitter is nice though. Her A2, double hitter, increase attack on her before attacking. That's good if the target's under shield and ignores 25% of their defense. If the target's under shield, perfect. She has a ton of stuff happening in her kit, by the way. It's going to take a while to read it all. Perfect veil on her for 2 turns if she kills an enemy. 30% turn meter fill if it doesn't kill the target. So this is a pretty good move. Again, it's a 2-turn cooldown when booked, but it does need to be booked. It does need to be booked, but it's a good move when it gets going. This is actually fine. And then her A3 hits really hard, though again, it really wants to be booked to go from a 6 to a 4-turn cooldown. This absolutely claps. Smacks so hard. Attacks one enemy, ignores 25% defense if they've higher defense than her. She's got horrendous defense, so that's almost definitely going to be the case. So it hits super hard. decreases target's max HP by 25% the damage inflicted if they've higher max HP than her. And then this is the big thing, does it a second time if the target is both higher defense and higher max HP than this champion. So she'll absolutely delete people. She will. This hits so hard. So hard. But the point of it is, and then what, right? Okay, so you put her into arena and she one-shots one of the enemies. That's great. But then she's got no extra turn mechanic, right? One enemy is dead, but then they can just revive that enemy. Then the rest of their team gets to go. So as your damage dealer, she's just not bringing it. She's just not bringing it. Like if she got an extra turn when she kills someone, then she'd go straight into Hollow Doll. Then we'd be talking, but that's not what happens. It's just not what happens. This passive is actually my favorite part of her kit. When revived, attacks the enemy that killed this champion with her default skill, fills her turn meter by 25%, and gives her a shield equal to 50% of her max HP. Now, I think that's actually super fun. That's a badass thing, really thematic, you know. It's creepy doll. When she dies, if she gets revived, she pops back up, like screams and just goes crazy on you. Really reminds me of like the witch from Left 4 Dead, right? That vibe to her. And I think that's super cool. I love this. Unfortunately, she's got no way to bring revive in her own kit. I think she'd be very cool if she had, for example, Krutrax's passive, which is really underwhelming part of Krutrax's kit, that whenever she kills someone, she gets revive on death. Then we're talking about a pretty cool champion. And again, if they buff this a bit with more turn meter, then she'd be very scary. This champion that will come in and like potentially be one-shotting champs, then she'll get revive on death, and when you kill her, she gets to go in and attack you again. So a big threat to any damage dealer, and coming back relatively healthy and good to go into a one-shot. Then she'd be good, but she doesn't have that revive on death in her kit, unfortunately. Then she has a really weak second passive for some weird reason. Every hit, 50% chance to decrease the target's turn meter by 5%? What? And then 100% chance of decreasing their max HP by 5% of damage inflicted when attacking enemies under heal reduction, and heals her by 5% of damage inflicted attacking enemies under heal reduction, and it doesn't heal with War Master or Giant Slayer. Like, this is kind of baffling to me. Like, why is this part of her kit? It's so random. It's so random. And you look at this champ and you go, what? She just does damage. Like, do you bring accuracy to land heal reduction? No. Like, why would you? It's such an underwhelming debuff, and if she doesn't bring it, what are the chances someone else's heal reduction? Really low. So half the time this passive doesn't work. Yeah, the effects are so small. They are so weak. It's just very weird. Got a great aura. At least there's that. So yeah, she's a weird one. I just don't know where you use her in the game. I just don't know where you use her in the game. I wonder if she was supposed to be some sort of funky champion for Scarab boss. You know, she depletes max HP on this. With her passive, she can do a bit more max HP depletion. She revives with a shield. I wonder if she was supposed to be a champion that you would bring in just built purely for damage, and she would nuke the Scarab and then die, and then you'd revive her and she'd nuke him again. And I guess that's the intention, but she's just never been used for that. Like, not on any of the harder Scarabs. Like, sure, she can destroy Scarab normal and maybe some of the lower floors of hard, but I've never seen her used on the hardest Scarab. It's just not relevant. It's just not relevant. So there you go, Little Miss Annie. For me, people like her for Arena. They like her for Fire Knight and stuff, but for me, just no. I don't think so. Again, would you invest your books in this champion? I don't think so. Like, yeah, sure, she can clap Hydra normal and Hydra hard. She can do good damage there to decapitated heads. Really good. But then again, so can so many other champions that can also be really useful for you everywhere else in the game. Like Yannicka from the clan shop. I would definitely build and book Yannicka way before Little Miss Annie. There you go. Guys, listen, those are, in my opinion, they're the 6 worst legendaries in the game right now. Let me know what you think. Do you disagree? I'm sure people will disagree, and you'll have other picks for worst legendaries. There are a few on the short list. I can tell you that. There's definitely a few more that are pretty bad, that you pull them, you look at them, and you go, oh, okay. I'd build them for fun if I had the resources, but let's be real. They're going in the vault, and they're never coming out. Guys, thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.